Practically speaking, most of our daily stress doesn't come from massive factory fires or going blind in an Olympic swimming pool, as we discussed in my last video. The reality is that most of our stress comes from other people. People who are rude, people who are ungrateful, people who betray us, people who just don't behave in the way we expect them to. Stoicism speaks to how we interact with society. It's called the discipline of action. And the core tenet of this discipline suggests that we should always act with justice and kindness toward others, absolutely regardless of how they act toward you. I know that sounds simple in theory and perhaps a little naive, because, frankly speaking, most of us are just not built to react that way. I know I struggle with this. Let's take a look at one of the most powerful and inspirational examples of selflessness, humility, and forgiveness in modern history: Nelson Mandela. Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years in South Africa for fighting against apartheid. Think about that number for a moment. 27 years, literally stolen from him. He was subjected to brutal conditions, hard labor in a limestone quarry, isolation, and psychological abuse by his captors. If anyone in human history had the right to walk out of prison consumed by absolute burning rage, it was Nelson Mandela. He had every excuse to seek violent revenge against the people who stole 3 decades of his life. But when he was finally released in 1990, he didn't call for blood. He called for reconciliation. He later said one of the most profoundly stoic things a human being has ever uttered. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. Mandela realized that holding on to and suppressing anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. He understood that his captors could lock his body in a cell on Robben Island, but they could not control his mind. And if he let hatred dictate his actions after his release, his oppressors would still be controlling him. By choosing forgiveness, he made the conscious decision to lead his country with a spirit of unity. Rather than revenge, Mandela took all of his power back. He controlled the controllable, his own response, and released the rest. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. He would remind himself every morning. Begin the morning by saying to yourself, "I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil." Why? Because he recognized that when people act badly, it is usually because they are suffering, confused, or ignorant. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a co-worker takes credit for your idea, when a family member is deeply unfair to you, your immediate reaction is going to be anger. That is human nature. But remember, you cannot control someone's bad behavior. You can only control whether you let their bad behavior turn you into a bitter, angry person. Don't let someone else's lack of virtue compromise your own. Your character is your most valuable possession. Don't hand it over to a rude stranger just because they pushed your buttons. Try this when a difficult interaction presents itself. The next time someone makes a snide remark, is incredibly rude, or completely ignores your needs. Take a deep breath and apply the Stoic Pause. Don't respond for 3 full seconds. In those 3 seconds, remind yourself, their behavior is a reflection of their character. My response is a reflection of mine. Then respond with calm precision, not emotional reactivity. Let's talk about hitting rock bottom and what the meaning of liberation of failure is. We are all terrified of failing. We are terrified of losing our money, our status, or our reputation. We spend so much of our lives building up this armor of success, trying to prove to the world and to ourselves that we are important. But Stoicism teaches us that external success is fragile. It can be taken away by a shift in the economy, a change in an algorithm, a sudden illness, or a stroke of bad luck. If your entire identity is tied up in your job title, your bank balance, or your social media following, believe me, you're incredibly vulnerable. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to us is to lose it all. I know that sounds kind of weird, but when everything you thought you were is stripped away and laid bare, you discover who and what you actually are. I'm sure you've heard of J.K. Rowling and probably read at least one of the Harry Potter novels. Long before she became one of the most successful authors in history, she was a young woman whose life was falling apart in almost every conceivable way. In her late 20s, she found herself an unemployed single mother, living on state benefits in Edinburgh, Scotland. Her marriage had imploded. She had no money. She was diagnosed with clinical depression and even contemplated suicide. But years later, she talked about the profound power of that failure. Failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that mattered to me. I was set free because my greatest fear had been realized and I was still alive. And so rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. Think about that for a moment. When you have nothing left to lose, you lose the fear. We let the fear of failure dictate our lives. Try this mental exercise. What is the one failure you are most afraid of right now? Write it down in detail. What happens if you lose your job? Now, write down exactly how you would survive it. Where would you sleep? What would you eat? Who would you call? When you define your worst nightmare on paper, the fear loses its fangs. Let me leave you with this thought. We're all struggling with something today, but you're going to be okay. Life has a beautiful way of unfolding beyond what you could have imagined. Thanks again for taking the time to watch and listen to this video. I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments below. See you on my next video.